Hey folks, welcome back. Appreciate you being here. And thank you all who have commented and my couple of new followers. Please understand that is truly appreciated, even if I don't respond directly. I'm hoping this year's tour will really get those numbers up. So if you're watching, I would appreciate a follow. So we're into the 5th stage of the tour. It is flying along. Although not today, it's a sprint stage. They finally did get a breakaway. That's what this other painting is. But it was, and they didn't even go to 40, 50 kilometers into the race. Sorry, that helmet didn't get quite as long as it should have. But with a sprint stage and no breakaway, there's no reason for anybody to ride hard. And even still, they're not exactly flying today. I think even now, well, now they're moving along at 30 miles an hour, which I can't ride that fast except for downhill. But for the peloton, for these guys, that's not particularly fast. Of course, I'm also a 60-something-year-old man, and my racing days are long gone. Besides, racing can hurt. In fact, that's why I quit. I had a pretty spectacular crash. I mean, just lost a lot of skin, didn't break anything, but still, not, when you're really not going to go anywhere. And it was back when, in the 70s, the thought of an American pro cyclist was a nigh on ludicrous thought. If I remember right, that predated even Greg LeMond. There are stories of the peloton not being particularly welcoming to Americans and doing some pretty awful stuff. So it falls on a couple of riders on sprint teams to get out on the front, oftentimes called breakaway killers. And two of the best in the field are who I'm painting right now, working on the second guy. So this is Tim DeClerc, known as the Tractor. So I think that will feature into the title of this piece. The other over here is Sylvain Dillier. And this little cross right here on his sleeve, and when I paint it, it'll become more obvious, represents that he is a former Swiss national champion and an incredible time trialist as well. So these two are sort of taking turns pulling on the front. Each have on their teams are the respective favorites, although I'm pulling for the Eritrean Bime to pull off another win. This sport has been so white for so long. And to have Bime, it's amazing to think he is the first black African, first black rider to win a stage in the Tour de France. And this is the 111th tour. I'm sure he won't be the last. So just working on now, getting the rest of the peloton in here. slide that water out of the way for a sec. So here's the advantage. In the image, there's a high tension power line, but I'm not taking a photograph. Just call this the tractor swings off. I like to sign these now because if I try to sign across the wet watercolor, it tends to mess up the pen, not write clearly, so it's just easier to go ahead and do it. Now, on my regular artwork, my studio work, which is usually mainly oil stick, mainly oil sticks on paper, and you can see that work on my website, theartofcycling.blogspot.com. There, I don't sign the work until I finish it. It's kind of that demarks that the painting is done. But I'm also not signing in the image, so there's less of a dryness issue. So again, as always, working my way through the color wheel, starting with pale and warm. So to the point earlier about the Peloton being very white, absolutely everybody I can see right now are white riders. So all the flesh tones, I mean, there is variation. There's variation in everything, right? But the skin tones will all be roughly the same. When I first started doing this, and I had never known, I've been watching the tour, reading about the tour from the 70s. As I said, I was an amateur racer, so I loved, but it was very difficult in the States to watch. It wasn't difficult, it was impossible. Until, I think it was the Outdoor Network. It's the first to start showing the tour. And then eventually that switched over to NBC's Sports Network, and then that dropped, and now, except for a rebroadcast in the middle of the night, which doesn't work for my purposes, it's on just streaming. But I started painting the tour in 2012. I think I've told the story of how that came about. But I was watching the tour, and probably tell just by virtue of me doing this that I'm a bit of a workaholic. But look, what's the old saying? If you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. Don't let that fool you. Making art is hard work. But I was watching and going, this is sinful. sitting here watching TV in the middle of the day, just not really my style. And my brilliant wife, Bridget Gethens, who's an actor, I recommend her most recent project was on Amazon called Sprung. I recommend looking that up. She's in 5. Well, her big episode. Whoops, I forgot somebody's arm. Not somebody's. The clerk's arm. There we go. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So her big episode is episode 5, but it's a funny show. Even if she wasn't in it, I'd be recommending you watch it. But can't tell this story and paint at the same time. Yeah. But so I was watching the tour and going, I just can't, this is wrong. And she goes, well, why don't you paint it? And initially, in her recommendation, we posted them on Facebook, and attempted to sell them that way. And that went well, and actually got me reviewed in the Washington Post, and got some interest going, and it's kind of just grown from there. So of course, again, in her wisdom, the next year she goes, okay, now what you should do is start Instagram and everything else that follows. So if you don't enjoy these, it's Bridget's fault. And if you do enjoy them, they're still her fault, or her brilliant idea. Yeah, she also had the idea, or encouraged the idea, to crowdsource a book in 2014, which was successful. You can find that on my website. And in that book, I dedicate the book to her, as one does. But because, as I say in the book, all of my great ideas are hers. And I mean that seriously. I'm not blowing smoke. I'm smart enough to recognize a good idea and not egocentric enough to shoot it down just because it wasn't mine. All right. So again, working on this palette now. I'm going to stay in the blues even though I'm creating some really dark blues. See where I need some more flesh tone. Sorry. Also see a red spot I missed, so we'll sort of work back here. And yeah, obviously not a hard and fast rule about this order of color. If you make a mistake, obviously you have to fix it. But you notice I did rinse the brush out, make sure it was clean, and then go again. So I'm going to lay in these greens where the trees, first the trees and then the mountain dots behind. And so, I'm sure many times past I've talked about it, but so you have several forms of perspective at your disposal. The first, of course, being, the diminishing lines. And so these guys are very large, and then as the peloton goes back, the guys get smaller and smaller. And then, of course, scale being the next part of that. And then the next one is how you apply the color. So as things get further away, they become more muted, less distinct, and bluer as the water vapor in the sky influences the color of things in the background. So brighter, less distinct, and then today is also the first day there's been any rain on the Peloton. So the sky isn't exactly blue, much to the dismay of some of the riders, particularly if that rain is heavy at the sprint finale. My, I have gray on my brush. Alpecin de Kooning had changed from blue, thank God, to gray. Interesting color choice. There was some discussion, I don't know the veracity of it, but they were doing it to highlight ageism in a sport that says you're old. They're talking about how old Cab is at 39. It's a little disingenuous. Be talking about ageism in a sport that's only for young people. All right, now I've worked my way down to the black. So just about finished here. So again, I encourage you to check out my website. And all of this art appears on my blog, theartofcycling.blogspot.com. There you'll find direct links to the paintings on my website, gregleach.com, where you can purchase the paintings. And of course, I certainly hope you will. So far, it's been going pretty well. And please leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think of the paintings, the tour. Anything else that pops into your mind. And thanks so much for watching.